Hi everyone, it's Vicky here from createafashionbrand.com and fashionserviceshongkong.com. Just a really quick update so nobody complains that you haven't had enough notice. The Fashion Brand Bootcamp bookings will be open from the 1st of April, so that's when we're going to open up the applications so that you can book your slot for our bootcamp 2018, and that's going to be in June and July of this year. So there you are, notice done. I'm going to get on to important stuff. This week I'm probably going to have a slightly longer video, only because I've had a lot of emails this week on one particular topic. And it's around something that's been in the news this week across America and Europe, but specifically the UK. A company called Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, obviously, if you know what's going on there with Mark Zuckerberg and data and etc. And a few very smart people have asked questions about consumer profiles, because essentially what Cambridge Analytica used to do was customer profiles, consumer profiles for their clients. Now they're not doing it for a product per se, they're doing it for political reasons or for trying to sway votes and things, but essentially the process is the same. But there is a key difference in the things that they did, which we're not quite sure if it's illegal or not at the moment. There is some parts of it were legal and some parts of it weren't. And a few people have asked about my company and how customer profiles are done in general, not just with me, but with other companies that work for fashion brands and other brands. So I thought it was a really good topic to cover this week, but as I said, it's going to be a slightly longer video because there's quite a lot involved. So let's kind of get into it. So a customer profile, essentially, we'll start with that, is something that I always say to people you really need to work on. And it's for a very simple reason. If we go back to the old days where people just had shops, you know, times before the internet, when the dinosaurs ruled the world, when I was growing up, you had a shop and you would put your stuff in the shop window and people would walk past, come in, pay for goods and leave. Okay, simple. If you had if you're trying to build a brand at that point or a very successful company, there were things you had to consider for your shop. So location, for one, would be something quite important. If you had a luxury brand, you would have to compete with other luxury brands, and you'd want to be in a location which was luxury brands. And all of those luxury companies would be in a very specific part of your city or your town or wherever, because they would put themselves in a place where people who could afford their product lived. It's very simple. They put their product in front of the right people, the people that could afford their product. If you were going for something that was kind of the lower end, the kind of more value everyday product, then it'd make no sense to put your store there. You'd put it somewhere else, somewhere with appropriate customers, with appropriate needs and the appropriate lifestyle and affordable, things that they could afford, the right money, that sort of stuff. Now online has kind of opened this whole world up to all kinds of things, but essentially the process is still the same. As a branding company or a marketing company or somebody who builds fashion brands like me, I have to look at the brand you're trying to build or the product that you're trying to offer, and I have to give you advice as to how to put your brand, your shop window, which might be your web page or your social media, whatever, your adverts, in the right location, so in front of the right people. Right? Makes sense. Exactly the same thing. It's just online. Now, the way that my company goes about it, and I would assume most companies, competitors of mine, people who do branding and marketing and various other things, do it in a legal and proper way. We would look at what we call generic data. So when you do a census for your government, when you even on online and you have a profile, you fill out certain information, your age, your gender, location. They might ask you in terms of Facebook, they ask you for hobbies, religion, various other things. Um, and what they would do is that they would give people who want to advertise that information. Now, before anyone panics, the reason we call it generic information is it doesn't say, use me, it doesn't say Vicky, who lives in Hong Kong, was originally from London, went to this university and is this age, I'm not giving that away, um, and is female and she's married and she likes this hobby and this hobby and this hobby. That's not what happens. What it says is that on Facebook, on the whole, you have X amount of people, let's say, I don't know, I'm making the numbers up, but 5% of people are 18 to 24. 30% of people are 25 to 30, and so on and so on. And then it would give you the same information about location and male, female, cities, jobs, whatever you would put forward in your profile. So it's generic. It basically looks at the whole of Facebook. And what we do, we kind of narrow those things down. So if I put in, okay, I just want to look at London, for example, how many 24-year-olds are in London that use Facebook and like this hobby? And it would generate a number based on its data. And it might, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000, something like that. But it doesn't say Amanda, John, Vicky, Tim, Chris, Caroline, Anthony, and give you all their information. It doesn't do that. It gives you generic information. It gives you the total. Okay. So what my team do and what other people do if they're working the right side of the law is that they take that information and they process it and they analyze it and they try and come up with, from experience and being really good at what they do, my team sit there and they collect information from Facebook and Twitter and Google and Pinterest and Instagram and all these things, and they compare the different details of the people we think are your customer, and they'll make judgment calls on that. So they'll go, right, well, for your specific brand, you should focus your marketing on Instagram because it has more people who want your product or who are the right target audience for you, rather than focus on Twitter, for example. And then for a different brand, it would come up with different results. So we tailor the information to your company and your brand based on what the generic data is doing. Now, Cambridge Analytica and Facebook are in the news because they do something called data mining. Data mining is something a little bit different. So what Cambridge Analytica were doing is that they would put a survey on Facebook. They went to Facebook and they said, can I survey your people? And Facebook said, yeah, sure, you can do that. So they go online and they say, hey, and they put something, let's say on my profile, they go, hey, Vicky, we'd love you to fill out a survey. And for that survey, we might put your name into a prize draw or something. And I go, okay, cool. I'm going to fill out the information and I'm going to type down some stuff. Now, because you've clicked their term, they've said yes to their terms and conditions, you've given them permission to have that additional data specifically on you as an individual, as a person. And they collect all of that. And then what they were doing was using that to then target certain people in certain areas for political reasons. They were trying to influence votes, basically. So that's why a lot of governments are not very happy about the situation. The other thing that they were doing was in their terms and conditions, when you signed up to that survey and you did that survey, their terms and conditions said, it's not just your information we want to look at. Thank you for filling out all this information, but we want to search through your actual profile. And we're not just going to search through your profile and the stuff you haven't told us, but we're going to search through all your friends' profiles and stuff they haven't agreed to. But we're going to get access to it because you clicked the terms and agreements and conditions. So what they were doing, they weren't just taking the information from the survey, because that's perfectly legal. If a company came to me right as a startup, I wouldn't bother with surveys and all that kind of stuff. It's way too specific right at the beginning of your process. That kind of stuff you can do 5 years down the line. That's better that time. Now what we would do is we would go out and we would survey people exactly the same way. And we'd say, hi everyone, would you mind telling us something about this, and this, whatever it was we needed to know. Now what we would do is work on the right side of the law and really morals, and we would just use the data you had given us. Where it becomes tricky, and there's a certain issue around whether it's legal or not, because obviously people have ticked the I agree to your terms and conditions box. That's where you've kind of given permission. The legality of it then becomes a little tricky. They've basically gone, thanks for the data in the survey, but we're not happy with that. We want to look at more of your stuff, but we're not going to tell you. We're just going to do it anyway. So we're now going to search through your profile and look through all of that. And we're not going to stop with you. We're going to look at your friends, and we're going to search through all of them. So the big difference between a proper customer profile and a proper company, a decent company like mine and many other people, many of them my competitors, but we all do it in a law-abiding, moral way that respects people's privacy, respects their data. And we don't build apps and fancy bits of equipment and software to try and go behind your back. We simply ask people for information, and we tell our clients it's going to take some time, because if you're doing it the proper way, it does. It takes some time to do. And we look at the information that we have available. We don't go behind people's backs and start looking through their profiles. We'd have no access to that. And the reason that Facebook is involved in this is because it's given a third party, Cambridge Analytica, permission to go searching through your profile and searching through your friend's profile. So that's where Facebook has come into this by allowing it to happen. They should be protecting your data, essentially. So the message, I suppose, for a lot of people who are very concerned about customer profiles in general is that it doesn't really matter if you're going with me or you're going with a competitor. Me and all those companies, we do things in a legal way. We do things in a genuine way. We're not trying to data mine people's private, emails and pictures. Really, that'd be pointless. It wouldn't actually give us any more information than we would need. It's the reason that I employ people who are very experienced. They know what they're looking for. They can look at generic pieces of information and make really good judgments and really accurate judgments based on very simple bits of data, like there are 20,000 people in this age range, half of them are female, half of them like this or like that, the hobby. And they make some really, really good judgment calls, but that's down to their experience and their techniques and being able to make those judgment calls. A lot of people don't employ those kinds of people anymore because they are expensive and they're really damn good at what they do, so they can charge a bit more money. But I would rather do that and get it right first time than having to do all these underhanded things to try and get these extra bits of data which actually wouldn't help us in any kind of way. So I think what people are getting very confused about is that customer profiling has been done for hundreds and probably thousands of years. This is nothing new. Customer profiling is expected in the industry. And if you're doing it in a proper way and you're doing it in a respectful way, and you're generally not trying to ram products down people's throats, you're trying to give them something that would be genuinely helpful to them, their lives. I don't really see any problem with it. What I do see the issue with is the way that these companies have gone about it and tried to get access to data that people didn't give permission for. And that's why it's kind of in the news at the moment and really being looked at. Um, Someone asked me in one of their emails, one of their questions, what would be my advice for Cambridge Analytica? I suppose my advice would be employ some decent people in your company. If you had people like my team who are really experienced and great at their jobs, you wouldn't need to be data mining. You just wouldn't. Um, you know, down to their experience, their knowledge, everything that they do day to day, they can look at generic data and kind of make a really good judgment call. So that would be my advice. I think for Cambridge Analytica, I don't know, try not being so sneaky and underhanded, and employ better people, I think would be my advice. I don't want to discourage people from doing customer profiles because they are really, really important. I talk about them all the time. You really need to understand what people are looking for not just for your company, but for them as well. If if people are really frustrated because they can't find a product that they really, really want, and you then provide them the product, you're doing a good job because you're giving them something that they want. And you know, you're building a company, you're employing other people, you're helping them to feed their families and keep roofs over their heads. I don't see that as an issue. As long as you're doing it in a decent and proper way, I don't see that's a problem. Um, so I suppose my advice is not to be worried about customer profiles. You should be doing it. Look at any comments and things online. Anything that's in the public is in public. You can make some judgment calls and do some research just by looking through Twitter conversations or stuff on Instagram or even Facebook groups. Anything that's in the public is fine. It's when you start trying to dig in behind that it gets a little murky and a bit on the dark side. I'm not quite happy with all that kind of tactics. But I don't want to put anybody off doing the research because it is really, really important for your brand. So I hope that's helped answer a number of the questions that I had this week. They were around, and I'll kind of give you a rundown. They were around, what exactly are customer profiles? What exactly does your team do? How do they go about it? Is this the same for other companies? There was lots of stuff about Cambridge Analytica and how the tactics were used and questions around that. But there is a very, very big distinction, and I will defend, even my competitors in the field. 99.9% of them are doing it properly, legally, honestly, and in a genuine way. You just get that, idiots like this company who kind of give it a bad name. But I think it's a really important thing to still do for your company. So I wouldn't go kind of trying to avoid it. I would just make sure that you stick on the right side of data collection if you're doing it on your own. And I always have done, and I always will do. So That's really all I can kind of promise people. And as many people who've had customer profiles from me, they'll know they don't get specific names and addresses and email addresses and anything like that. There's nothing like that in our customer profiles. We give people really good, strong advice where to begin, how to plan their marketing, how to approach an audience, not this person here and this person here and this person here. So all I can say is, you'd see that from the result. If you've ever had one with my company, you'd know that. So I hope that's answered a lot of questions this week. There has been a lot of them. I had about 50 emails asking me various different topics around customer profiles. So I hope that's helped to answer some of your questions. And I will obviously get back to answering more specific questions next week. So don't forget, you can email me if you are on my newsletter. If you're not, description box, get on it. Or you can leave me a comment on one of the videos and let me know your thoughts. If this video has been helpful or you thought it was good for people to listen to, watch, then please like, please share. It really helps me reach more people who need my help and advice. And I will see you next week for another answer to another question.